Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast presented by the Blue R Podcast Network. My name is Steven. I am your host. Joining me, as always, are my guys Tyler and Alex. Alex, we'll start with you. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good today. Still some fallout from the roster decisions, but it seems like we're heading in the right direction and the regular season right around the corner. So I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, we've only got 3 more shows, and then we'll have the actual season start, which is crazy. So excited for that. By the time people are listening to this, my alma mater, University of Utah, yes, I have to plug them every single day, every single episode.
Oh man!
But they open their season tomorrow, you guys, and I'm so excited for that.
I can actually show. I can show for that too. Rutgers plays tomorrow against Temple.
There we go. That's not a conference game, right? Temple's still in the American.
Yeah,
that's a good season opener for Rutgers, though. Tyler, how you doing today, man?
Doing very well, because I know that at some point in the season, no matter how good Utah is doing, they're going to lose to USC.
Oh, well, to be fair, they cannot win at the Coliseum, so I actually don't hate that. Like, the Utah winning at the Coliseum is like the Chargers winning in Denver. Like, I just cannot predict it to happen until I see it happen more consistently.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think that USC and Utah are kind of even at this point, but that should be a good game. Anyways, this is a Chargers podcast. Of course, I had to talk about my Utes, but we'll get to everything else that we have today. So we've got a fun show planned. We're going to talk about the latest roster decisions, as you can see in Alex's name if you're watching on YouTube. We're also going to talk about some of our favorite regular season NFL bets. We're doing a big NFL preview today. We also have an interview with NFL Network's Taylor Bisciotti, who joined me and Alex and had some great things to say about the Chargers. And we talked all about Bill Belichick and the Patriots. So make sure and check that out. And then we're going to wrap the show up today, giving our playoff predictions, MVP award predictions, and all that good stuff to kind of preview the NFL season, which is coming soon enough. So that being said, let's get started with the latest roster decisions. Unfortunately for Forrest Merrill, man, just a tough 24 hours as he makes the roster and then gets cut in favor of Eric Banks, who's coming over from the Rams. And then Brandon Facyson got cut today too. I should say waived. Waived is the technical term. So Brandon Facyson was waived in favor of Trey Marshall, who is coming over from the Broncos. Both players have ties to Brandon Staley and Ronaldo Hill. So not really a surprise that they would target those kind of players, but definitely a surprise that Forrest Merrill and Brandon Facyson were waived. So let's talk about those moves first, and then we'll get into the practice squad. Tyler, what was your initial reaction to seeing those 4 corresponding moves today?
Yeah, so from my understanding is, per source, the plan was they were always going to have 5 interior defensive linemen, and that final spot was going to be, well, initially they thought it was going to come down to one of Cortez Broughton or Joe Gaziano, because Christian Covington was actually going to be their backup nose tackle and rotate there. And Staley has kind of said as such, and we've speculated that, but we weren't quite sure. So, IDL 5 was always going to be more of that B-gap pass rushing guy than a true nose tackle. But then they kept Merrill, which was interesting, and Fehoko was out, fine. But then, they cut Merrill and then add Banks, who I believe most of the preseason, if not all of the preseason, lined up between the guard and the tackle on all of his reps. So they do eventually get the kind of guy that they want. They do want supposedly that B-gap sort of guy. How it translates, I don't know. But then again, if you listen to Brandon Staley in any of his press conferences, he can sell anything. So they're talking about this guy. He's like, he's exactly what we want. He looks like this, reminds me of this. He has the size, the speed, the length, whatever that we want. So he's exactly what we want for our team. And it's like, all right, fine. Like, I'll bite again. You're probably right. And you're all smart and we like you. So I think it's a surprise move that we've gone from Cortez Broughton to Banks. But, I get that they've got their guy that they think is their best defensive tackle shot to be there. Great. As far as the other ones, with Facyson being cut and Hall staying, Hall, just speaking about Hall has that special teams value that clearly they're gunning for. They love that. That is their number one thing. If you are not a starter, you better be a darn good special teamer. So they're rocking with Hall. And then I guess, Marshall's someone that they think they can develop over Facyson. Both Facyson and Marshall basically run a 4.54. So it's not like we're gambling on speed or some athletic traits like a Devon Campbell. Marshall's also a little bit shorter, but I guess for what it's worth, if I'm trying to find something here, of the 16 tackles he has listed on PFF, which is, again, not all that much in the last 3 seasons, he hasn't missed any, and which can point to kind of the theme of what they wanted to do in the draft, in the offseason, which is get better at tackling. You can point to guys like Nick Neiman, Mark Webb, Ben DeLuca, all who had really, really great missed tackle rates. So, they keep DeLuca on the practice squad, but they're targeting guys with that low missed tackle rate. And so, Facyson, of course, we just saw recently how bad that was. I thought he was better than that, and he's shown to be better than that. But again, that was just a very poor performance at the worst possible time. A guy who was CB2 to open camp now gets cut for a guy that they just pull from the Rams. But then still, Marshall is really cool. I think what their plan is for him is really great. They want to use him wherever he's needed. Another Mark Webb light, if you will. It is still very interesting they're keeping Keemon Hall, because Hall, again, only played in the slot all preseason. That's all he does. But he's a really good special teamer, and so they're keeping him around. So, I'm surprised by some of these moves, particularly transitioning from Broughton to Banks. But again, it's what the coaching staff wants. And, as concerned as I was about both the interior defensive line room and the safety room heading into the season and into the offseason, Staley has really shown that he can get the best out of these guys. So, at those 2 particular spots in particular, I think they're okay. And if that's who they want, that's who they got. And, we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, really quick before Alex jumps in, I just want to clarify here. Trey Marshall is a safety. I saw some people saying that he was like a corner and replacing Brandon Facyson straight up. That's not the case. Brandon Staley, views him as a safety and somebody that can play, in the slot as well as kind of that dime linebacker. So he's not a corner. He's a safety. He's going to do a lot of the similar things like Tyler said that Mark Webb can do, and mostly play special teams. All right, Alex, I know you've been jumping at the bit here. So what are your reactions today to those 4 corresponding moves?
Yeah, I really like the Trey Marshall one. I think he provides a lot of special teams value just in general. And there's not just the Brandon Staley connection, not just the Ronaldo Ho connection, but also a Derwin James connection from their time at Florida State. So I think that's fun. He gets his buddy in the safety room. Can't really argue against that. Plus, Staley said today he's going to be a core special teamer. And Brandon Facyson was not going to be that. So I think that's really what the decision came down to. And when you're talking about, say, Keemon Hall versus Brandon Facyson and some of those guys, Keemon Hall was just more consistent throughout the preseason, and I think throughout training camp. While Facyson maybe had a couple highs at the beginning, just did not carry that steam throughout. So to me, I do like the Marshall pickup just in the safety room, and if it comes at the expense of Facyson, so be it. As far as the Merrill thing and him getting cut, I just think it's really weird, the process that we've taken to get there. Because at first it was like, okay, well, we want Forrest Merrill because he's this big, wide defensive tackle. Braden Fehoko, Cortez Broughton don't fit that mold. And now they have Banks, who really is about 270, 6'4". So he's kind of built a little bit like a Jerry Tillery or a Cortez Broughton. He's actually like 20 pounds less than those guys. So it's just a question of like, what do they want there? I think he'll be fine. The only concern that I do have with him is that one of the reasons the Rams did cut him was because he had a back injury that he's still dealing with. So I'm sure Staley still knows that information and is kind of working with him through that. But that's going to be interesting to see kind of what his playing status is. How effectively can he play right now with that injury? So I'm not so much concerned about him having the 5th depth spot over Merrill, over Fehoko, over Broughton. I'm still a little salty about Broughton. But in terms of him just having that spot, for me, it's just, how healthy is he right now? But again, that's just my only concern with it, really. But also, he is a little bit unproven on the field. Obviously has not played, in an NFL game to this point in his career. But as the 5th defensive tackle on the roster, I don't think that's a huge concern. Especially because they were about to play Forrest Merrill, who's never played in an NFL game either. Right. So, there weren't a lot of depth, experienced options once you got past Covington. So, in general, I like their moves today, especially the Trey Marshall pickup. I think that's a great special teams defensive signing. Thought they needed a little bit more in the safety room anyway. And in terms of the 2 that they cut, and Forrest Merrill and Brandon Facyson, Merrill's going to land on the practice squad. I have, all the confidence in the world on that. As far as Facyson landing on the practice squad, I'm not sure. It seems like they were just sort of done with him today, but I guess that he could always get there if he gets through waivers. That's always a possibility. But it seems like they're gonna take the Fehoko approach to Merrill this year and just stash him on the practice squad, see what happens.
Yeah, so it didn't really seem like Facyson was going to be on the practice squad. There wasn't a follow-up question. There was a follow-up question for Forrest Merrill, and Staley was quick and said absolutely, like, he wants him on the squad. I do agree, though, that like the process to get to this point was very confusing because, Brandon Staley yesterday, it was Forrest Merrill as that nose tackle guy. We felt like we needed that run presence. And then, Christian Covington's going to be that kind of that gap shooter in the 3 technique and the 4 technique. And I was like, okay, like I can understand that vision. And then it's Eric Banks, who is kind of a similar player to Cortez Broughton. He is on the lighter side. But it's just like a little confusing to me how he went from Cortez Broughton to Eric Banks. And so I will say, like, from a measurement standpoint, Eric Banks is pretty similar to Roy Robertson Harris, who Staley coached in Chicago. He was somebody that I thought the Chargers could have signed, and then Jacksonville really threw the bag at him, which was kind of a confusing move. But they did that to a bunch of players. So he does fit the mold a little bit more of that Roy Robertson Harris, at least, physically. But it was a confusing process to get there for sure. But I think, we'll have to see how that one pans out. But it just is like, why didn't you just keep Cortez Broughton if you wanted this kind of player? And then it was like, oh, Christian Covington's going to do that. And then just kidding. So, like Tyler said, Brandon Staley can sell anything. And like, he had a great press conference today. If you haven't listened to that, I highly recommend it because he really dove into his coaching philosophies and where he's taking things. And it was like a 10-minute conversation. And I think it was just honestly pure gold. But the defensive tackle room is definitely confusing at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's just, if Staley wanted his guys and he has connections to both of these guys, then, that is what it is, right? Like, so if that's his preference over Broughton, then I'm fine with it. It's not like he picked up some rando off the street, right? Like, these were 2 very targeted signings. And for that, I think you have to at least respect it for now. We'll see what the playing status of Aaron Banks is and also Trey Marshall and how they do. But for now, I support the move.
Just a quick update, not update, but I asked Ryan Dyrud, who we know from LAFB, who covers both the Chargers and the Rams. We're all very familiar with him. He was the guy who was on our show when we broke the Brandon Staley news. Not that we broke it, but while it broke. And his comments on Banks were, he's a good pickup, in my opinion, was on the roster pretty much all last season, but he didn't get many reps because of how good the Rams defensive line was. He had a good camp in preseason, and the Rams, he was surprised that the Rams waived him, but they have a lot of depth again. So, again, nice diamond in the rough sort of signing. Not quite like an Ode Abuji, but in the same vein of, actually this guy's pretty good. They just, he found a spot for him. So again, all things sound good about these guys. Let's just see how. I don't know. I don't really buy that he's going to instantly be any better than Cortez Broughton would be. So I'd love to be proven wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of special teams and Jaguars, just kind of back it a little bit. Tyron Johnson was claimed by the Jacksonville Jaguars, who of course had the first waiver priority. And I know that there's still been a lot of like speculation about Tyron Johnson's character and what was the move. And honestly, like what Brandon Staley told us is that they only wanted to keep 5 receivers, and the back 2 receivers really needed to be special teams players. So we've seen Palmer on punt coverage, kickoff coverage, and kick return as a blocker. So he's been heavily involved. And then of course, KJ Hill is the punt returner and is battling for kick returner duties as well. So what Brandon Staley essentially told everyone yesterday is that the wide receiver 3 battle between Jalen Guyton and Tyron Johnson was not just for a role, but it was also for a roster spot. And unfortunately, Tyron Johnson just doesn't do enough on special teams. And that really is what it came down to. As much as we all hate it and disagree with it, Brandon Staley was pretty clear about it. He said that he respects him as a man and as a player. So please stop speculating that this is about Tyron Johnson's character, because that is just frankly not true.
I'm so mad that Urban Meyer got him.
I know.
No, I'm going to die mad about it.
But Tyron Johnson landed in a good spot. I'm happy for him. You know, they really kind of needed that deep threat, that deep presence alongside kind of Marvin Jones. And I mean, Trevor Lawrence is very similar to Justin Herbert. So it's a good spot for him. In other news, the Chargers have added 12 players to the practice squad. Michael Bandy, Darius Bradwell, Cole Christiansen, Ben DeLuca, Emeka Egbole, Braden Fajoko, Joe Gaziano, Nate Gilliam, Ryan Hunter, Hunter Campmoyer, man, Hunter and Hunter back to back. Okay. Jason Moore, and then Joe Reed. So I feel like it's a good balance. It's a good mix of players that we wanted to see back. Personally, you know, really excited that Emeka Egbole, Braden Fajoko, and Ryan Hunter in particular were able to come back. I think all three of those players are likely to see the field at some point. All of them kind of play positions of attrition, as Brandon Staley has put it. But Tyler, who else kind of stands out to you about the practice squad so far?
I mean, who else really stands out to me? It's more of the guys that aren't there that stand out to me more than the guys that are there. I mean, I'm glad that Ben DeLuca made it. Of course, I've been shilling for him really for almost no reason, but you know, I do appreciate what he can do. I do think he had a nice final game of the preseason, and they need him. He was kind of one of my easy locks to make the roster. But I actually be very interested in both Bradwell and Campmoyer heading into next season because we don't quite know. So if I'm not mistaken, Cook, Parham, and Anderson are all not under contract next season, correct? Or does Cook get a 2-year deal?
No, Cook was
a
a
1-year deal.
Okay, so I believe it's just Trey McKinney that's under contract for the Chargers next season. So Campmoyer developing into a role where, you know, he was kind of like Steven Anderson, you know, blocking in the backfield, developing as that tight end. I think that would be great. And then also, as you look at, again, next season as well, they're probably going to move on from both of Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly. And so someone like Darius Bradwell, who has gotten better over the past year, would be interesting.
Absolutely.
I don't know if he's going to be, you know, ever really make the roster and be a solid contributor, but he made a case in some of his flashes that he's at least getting better. So another year, another, you know, workout regimen or whatever he's done to improve himself. And he could totally see a roster spot next season because they're going to need bodies, and he provides something very different. I would have been shocked if he got a roster spot, but I would have been supportive of it because he is, you know, very different than the other guys. So, you know, another year with Staley, with this actual coaching staff, and who knows, maybe he does earn a spot next season. So a couple of guys on there that I like that they've stashed.
Yeah, I definitely like Darius Bradwell and Emeka Egbole making it there. It was just, you know, hard to fit them on the roster. You know, there's just too many guys. So them being there, you know, I thought Darius Bradwell was pretty tremendous this preseason. Like, I thought he was great on special teams. Was just a solid contributor all around. Certainly better than what we saw, you know, during Hard Knocks last season. So, you know, he's definitely improved. Having some pass rusher depth and Emeka Egbole is definitely a start. There weren't any offensive tackles there, right? I think it was just the guards and Gilliam and Hunter who were there.
It was Gilliam and Hunter, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they didn't really put anybody there. Obviously, Tyree St. Louis maybe would have been a guy who made it, but he's injured. So, you know, he was waived with that designation instead. So I kind of wouldn't mind seeing a tackle there, given the Chargers' kind of lack of depth there. Maybe they signed one from some other team or signed somebody who got cut to the practice squad. That would be kind of interesting. And I guess the last notable thing is that Joe Reed is on the practice squad. And I do like seeing that just because, I mean, look, they sunk a 5th-round pick into Joe Reed, and so far they're not getting much from it. But, you know, he is injured right now, but he gets this year to kind of work back, right, potentially into that rotation. So I like that they're not, you know, giving up on him, so to speak. And they're, you know, giving him a chance to kind of get right this year, both physically, mentally, in terms of, you know, learning the playbook and lining up in the right spots and all that. So, you know, and, you know, when he does get healthy, he'll still be, you know, competing and contributing in camp. I do think the practice squad experience is valuable. That is what I talked about with Braden Fajoko, and people were like, well, it's Staley's system, so the fact that he's been there a year doesn't count. I'm like, that's not how this works. You know, having a year or 2 years of NFL experience, whether it's on the practice squad or in the active roster, I think is important. And you're going against these guys who are NFL level players. You know, curious to see what Joe Reed can become a year from now, if there is something left. I don't have very high expectations. But I'm just happy that we're not giving up on him quite yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great call. So Forrest Merrill should take up one of those spots as well, because the practice squad is 16 players again this year. Right now they only have the 12, so Forrest Merrill will make it 13. And then I'm glad that you mentioned the offensive tackle. I think a cornerback on the practice squad would make some sense too. Unfortunately, we did hear that John Brannon is not in the plans there. And obviously Cortez Brown signed with the Chiefs practice squad. I think that was the only practice squad guy that I saw from the Chargers. I'll have to go back and look. But right now they do have 3 other spots, again, after Forrest Merrill kind of makes it there tomorrow. All right, guys, any other final thoughts on the practice squad or the roster moves from today?
I'm a little surprised. Well, unless you only think you only need one edge rusher, I'm surprised that Jesse Lemonnier didn't make it.
Yeah. And to be fair, he still could, right? Like there is
true.
Some other spots. I tweeted this out yesterday. I saw that Quincy Roche and Hamilcar Rashid have been cut. I know Roche landed on a practice squad somewhere. Not super positive about Rashid, but again, I'll have to look into that. So, Alex, any other final thoughts here?
Yeah, no, like you said with Hamilcar Rashid, right? Like if you can get a guy like that you feel sort of developmental and stick him on the practice squad, I think that's a great call.
Cool. Sounds good. So we're going to transition now to a segment about our favorite bets for the regular season. As you can see scrolling at the bottom, and as you've heard on our show for a while now, we have partnered with BUSR Sports as the main sportsbook for the Guilty as Charged podcast. If you use the link in our description and use the code NFL100FP, you are able to get a 100% bonus on your first deposit. So that being said, we're going to each mention 2 or 3 of our favorite bets of the regular season. And I'm going to kick us off. I'm going to mention a couple regular season and postseason results, as well as a specific prop bet that is out there. So my favorite bet for the season that I'm going to talk about here is the Seattle Seahawks plus 1,100 to win the NFC. I do not have that as my prediction, but I think them being that low on the list really is kind of crazy in my opinion. And so that really is kind of a bet where you place, a good amount of money. And if it happens, you make a great profit. So I think the Seattle Seahawks winning the NFC is in the realm of possibility. Of course, we've seen it happen before. And Russell Wilson is getting the Sean McVay Shanahan system installed. And we've seen around the league how easy that system is for quarterbacks. And really kind of DK Metcalf mentioned this in the postseason, but teams really kind of figured out how to shut them down deep, and the Seahawks just really didn't know what to do. So now you bring in that system that really specializes in mesh, specializes in those intermediate range passes. You'll get DK Metcalf more in space as opposed to just deep. And I really like the Seattle Seahawks at that kind of bet. Second for me is this Pittsburgh Steelers plus 500 to win the AFC North. I think the Baltimore Ravens and Cleveland Browns certainly have better rosters at this point, certainly better quarterbacks. But I really feel like a lot of people are sleeping on the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. I don't love what they did on the offensive line either. But you get Najee Harris, you get Pat Freiermuth, you get everybody on the receiving core back and healthy. And I do think that is in the realm of possibilities. And again, as kind of that third team in the division with the best odds, I think that would be the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I just don't really feel like any of the other teams kind of present that same kind of argument. And then the last one for me is Justin Herbert plus 1,800 for most passing touchdowns. And I really think that this Chargers team around him presents some unique red zone options, which we've seen in training camp so far. We know how the Chargers have kind of struggled in goal-to-go situations running the football. And so you bring in Donald Parham and his development. You bring in Jared Cook. You add Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer. And so I really think that Justin Herbert has a great chance of leading the league in touchdowns. I'm not going to predict that to be the case, but as a bet and him being so far down the list, I think that is a fantastic bet. So those are my 3. Nice. Seattle Seahawks to win the NFC, Pittsburgh Steelers to win the AFC North, and Justin Herbert to win the league, to lead the league, in passing touchdowns.
I like it. If your kicker sucks, which the Chargers have a kicker that isn't very good right now, hey, go for it all the time. Go score some touchdowns. Like you said, Justin Herbert has plenty of weapons. So I actually like that one. Yours were not unconventional, but more interesting than mine were. The first one I'm going to go with. See, I like bets like this where you wouldn't really pick this as the team or the player or what's going to happen, but you want to try to make some money here. You almost want to bet that's so stupid, yet there's a hint of hope for you. So I am going to say for Super Bowl odds to win, I'm going to go with the Washington football team with plus 4,000. Now, listen, I think personally, if Washington football team can get into the postseason, Ryan Fitzmagic can screw up whatever you think of playoff seeding or record or whatever, because all that matters at that point is one game. And who knows what he can do. That roster is actually pretty talented. I don't know how. Is Cosme a Washington football teamer?
Yeah, he is. He's going to be their right tackle.
Yeah, so I like Cosme. I like De'Ami Brown. I like Gibson. I like Terry McLaurin. Like, they have a lot of talent there and a quarterback who can do something interesting with it in the postseason. And obviously a very good defense. So they are set up to be a very good team. And I think they can do some damage. So Washington football team plus 4,000, not bad. The other one I picked, which makes a little bit more sense. And I only picked this one because I have so much respect for the offensive coordinator. And that's Josh Allen for MVP. It's not like a super crazy, oh my gosh, really? Because he was in the running last season. But I do think, if Mahomes has his MVP already, Rodgers has his MVP, maybe they want to find somebody else who is kind of almost there, but is going to show out. And who's going to show out more or be given the opportunity to show out more than Josh Allen? Because Brian Dable, their running game isn't very good outside of him, and their passing game is pretty solid with him. So Allen's going to be throwing like he did last year, running like he did last year. Dable is a madman, and they're going to throw on first down for the first 47 plays of the season. And I think, who's going to be, other than, Mahomes, Rodgers, and some of these established guys, who's going to be putting up more stats at least? I don't know how many games they'll win, but who's going to be putting up more stats than Josh Allen? Because Dable, keep pedal to the metal with that offense. He wants them to score as much as possible. So I do think there's a shot there. So those are my two. A crazy bet with Washington football team winning the Super Bowl, and then Josh Allen with MVP.
No, I really like that. Did you watch their last preseason game?
No.
They did not throw the ball they did not run the ball until the third drive of the game.
I love it.
The first two drives were all Josh Allen passes.
Oh my gosh.
Like, Dable is a madman, dude. And he really has done like a 180 because, if you look at like his Cleveland days as an offensive coordinator, it was all like run heavy offenses. And now he's just like, screw it. I don't need a running game. I'm just going to throw it 50 times a game. Yeah. So Alex, what are your favorite bets for this season?
So I have another MVP bet that I like in the vein of, all these guys who sort of step up. You mentioned Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson who elevate their game to that next level. I think you could look at quarterbacks like Justin Herbert and Josh Allen who are going to, potentially do that this year. But the one who actually has the longest odds of that group that I like is Kyler Murray at plus 1,800. I think that, he has DeAndre Hopkins, he has AJ Green, he has some of these weapons that they've given him. And they sort of improved the defense this year, brought in JJ Watt and some other guys there. So that's a team that I think I don't like Cliff Kingsbury at all. But just in terms of the value that's given there, I think it's solid for what it is. Plus 1,800, you're not really losing any money, I guess, by betting on that, and you have some potential to gain. So I like that one. Najee Harris is plus 1,200 for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I like that one quite a lot. Obviously, you could go to Mac Jones or any of these quarterbacks, but he's in a good spot in Pittsburgh, and I think he's going to have a lot of chance for offensive opportunities, which is why people love him as a fantasy option, and I think that does translate to awards too, because Offensive Rookie of the Year is often a stat award, so I do like those odds for Najee Harris. And my last bet is going to be the New York Giants under 7 wins plus 125. And I just think that they are a mess. Their offensive line sucks. Their quarterback sucks. And they're the worst team in the NFC East.
I don't know if I would go that far, but I understand the thought process there. The NFC East, man, like, it's just, I don't know like what to expect of them this year. And it really does suck because like, one of them is probably going to not be very good again and win the division. But it's just tough there. So good choices all around. I'm very interested in the Kyler Murray MVP talk. And of course, the Washington football team to win the Super Bowl. Why not? Sometimes you just got to throw a dark horse out there. And if it lands, dude, you make a ton of money. I'm always amazed by those guys who, like, the stories will come out where it's like they bet $1,000 on like the lowest seeded thing, and they won like $100,000 or whatever the case is. So betting, to me, I've dipped my toes in it. I'm definitely not a betting expert, but it is very interesting. All right, we're going to transition now to our interview with Taylor Bisciotti. Again, she had some great insight into the Chargers. She's going to be doing the Chargers beat for NFL Network this year, which is going to be fascinating to watch. As always, the video is going to be in a separate link, and the audio version is going to happen right now. All right, Alex, what did you think of our interview with Taylor? I think obviously the pick she had for the Chargers, I'm not going to spoil it for our video audience, but she thinks very highly of the Chargers this year. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've been optimistic about this Chargers team and the records that we have for them, and she just blew us out of the water on our own show. I mean, so, you know, that was fun to do that with her, and it's great that she'll be, you know, covering the beat for the Chargers. I think she's a great interviewer and all that. So, you know, it's going to be great to see kind of what she brings to that team. The Chargers already have some great beat writers and reporters, you know, like Daniel Popper. So it'll be great to see some kind of more interviewers in that vein as well, who are going to be on the sidelines. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Alex said, I thought I was optimistic about the Chargers this year, and then she made her pick, and I was like, okay, she, you know,
not that optimistic.
She's had a lot more access to teams than we have had. So,
yeah,
you know, I totally understand why certain media members favor certain teams. You know, you got to go with what you know. So, all right, let's get to our predictions this year, and we're going to start with our playoff AFC teams and then playoff NFC teams, as well as our picks to win the Super Bowl. And then we'll get to some regular season award predictions as well. Who wants to kick us off for AFC playoff teams?
I can. If you want to start.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
That's fine with me. So my divisional winners in the AFC, I will take the Tennessee Titans. In the AFC South, I'm not really a Colts believer. I think they have a lot of problems in their offensive line, Wentz uncertainty, and they just have some injuries in general that have been kind of battering them recently. T.Y. Hilton, now done for a certain amount of time, had surgery, so that's tough to lose. So I give the Titans the AFC South, and they have the Texans and the Jaguars in their division, so 4 free wins for you. So that's always nice. I have the Bills in the AFC East. I don't think the difference between like the Bills and the Dolphins and the Patriots is as much as maybe the media is making it out to be. Sure. But I think they do still have the most talented quarterback at this point and the best overall team when we talk about the Bills. So I will take them. I could definitely see, you know, the Patriots or Dolphins winning that division though still. But I will go with the Bills. In the North, it's really tough. I think it comes down to the Ravens and the Browns. I did ultimately choose the Baltimore Ravens to win that division. That thing kind of flips every year, though, between them and the Steelers, and now the Browns are involved. So I wouldn't be surprised to see any of the three win that division. But I feel like kind of, you know, not that Lamar had a bad year last year, but I think he'll play much more like he did over the back half of the season than he did in the first half. So I kind of like the Ravens there. And in the AFC West, I do have the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that's going to be kind of across the board for us, unfortunately. So yeah, do have to go with the Chiefs there. So my 4 division winners to recap are the Titans, Bills, Steelers, and Chiefs. For my wild card teams, I did decide to go with the Cleveland Browns, the Los Angeles Chargers, and I went with the New England Patriots. So those will be my 3 wild card teams. I thought about the Colts and the Dolphins. You know, the Steelers, putting them out is tough too. But to me, those are the 3 wildcard teams for me in the AFC.
I do agree about the Colts and the Titans. I don't necessarily buy the Titans that much, but if you would have asked me, you know, like a month ago, I would have picked the Colts for sure. But they've just got all these injuries. You know, they don't really know who their left tackle is going to be. They don't know what's up with Carson Wentz. They have a COVID outbreak. T.Y. Hilton's hurt. And their schedule to start is honestly brutal. Like they could realistically start like 1-5, and I wouldn't be all that surprised. Like they open with, I wrote it down, but they open with like the Seahawks, the Rams, and it's just really is brutal. And so I'm selling the Colts stock as much as I can, not just because I don't really buy the Titans, but I just think they'll kind of win by default.
Yeah.
So I'll give mine now. I have the Bills coming out of the AFC East. For what it's worth, I think they'll be the 1 seed. I think they'll beat the Chiefs and have the tiebreaker. The Chiefs will win the AFC West. If you would have told me again to make predictions a couple weeks ago, I would have had the Ravens winning the North. But that J.K. Dobbins injury, I think, really kind of changes, a game or two here or there. So I think the Browns will ultimately win the AFC North, Titans winning the AFC South. And then the 3 wildcard teams, I have the Ravens still making it. And then I have the Steelers making it. And then the Chargers. Like Alex, I thought about the Dolphins and I thought about the Patriots. But I really think that division in the AFC East is really going to just beat up on each other. I see them each kind of like splitting games with each other outside of the Bills. So I think the Dolphins and Patriots just kind of miss just because the division is really tough out there. So to recap, I have the 4 division winners: Bills, Chiefs, Browns, Titans, and then I have Ravens, Steelers, and Chargers.
Wow. Okay. So we're all, I think, well, we're pretty close, but I think we just differ very, very slightly. I mean, again, I don't think this is super hard to predict. I have the Chiefs, the Titans, the Browns, and the Bills. I don't have them particularly seeded. Although if you had to ask me, gun to my head, who's winning the 1 seed, yeah, I like the Bills. Though I do think the Chiefs can beat them in the playoffs, and we'll talk about that. And then for my wild card teams, I do have the Patriots. I just think with everything coming back, and with at least as NFL ready as Mac Jones looks, I think they can pull out enough. And against the Patriots, like they always sneak in, they always get away in the playoffs and yada yada.
Sure.
So Patriots, and then I do have the Chargers. So again, I don't hate this team. We don't hate this team. We just don't think they're Super Bowl contenders.
I do.
Yeah, that's right. Alex hates the team. He's wearing his Washington football red right now in support of this. No, I'm just kidding. So the Patriots, Chargers, and Ravens are going to be my wild card teams. I just think like you said, the Dobbins injury, that's big. I just think what the Browns have on defense is unfreaking real. It's a little unfair, to be completely honest, but that's what happens when you draft pretty well and then sign a lot of really good guys. It's just that defense is really, really good. The offense will be pretty solid. It'll only go as far as Baker can go. But I can kind of say the same thing about the Ravens and Lamar, although I'd rather take Lamar. But I do think the Browns defense is just that much better. And they were so close last season. They were a pretty well-oiled machine. And so I just think they'll take that next step forward and be a real challenge in the AFC.
Yeah, I think the Cleveland Browns, I think, are a real dark horse to come out of the AFC. But I think they're still kind of like a year away from really making that next jump, which is kind of what we've seen in the past. Like you got to make it to the playoffs first, and then you become that Super Bowl kind of team. So the Cleveland Browns are definitely close. All right, let's go to the NFC picture. I'll start us off. I have the Packers winning the North. I think the rest of that division just kind of stinks. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the AFC South. That team returning as many teams as as many players as they have is really kind of ridiculous. And then I have the Seattle Seahawks winning the West. Again, if you would have had me pick a couple weeks ago, I probably would have said the Rams, but that Cam Akers injury, I just think is really going to make the Rams much more one-dimensional than Sean McVay really kind of likes. So I have the Seahawks winning by just like a game or two, potentially, maybe even like tying and winning the tiebreaker. I have the Washington football team winning the NFC East. I don't feel great about it. The Cowboys could certainly win that division, but Dak's health is really kind of up in the air right now. So that's kind of the thing. And then I have my 3 wildcard teams. I have the Rams, the Saints, and the Niners. And then I have just missing the Cowboys and the Vikings. So again, I have the 7 playoff teams: Packers, Bucks, Seahawks, Washington football team, Rams, Saints, and Niners.
All right, reverse order. I'm next. So
there we go.
I do have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning their division, the Green Bay Packers. I am going with the Rams. I actually kind of like Sony Michel, but that's based on very little, to be completely honest. But I do think, I mean, they'll go as far as Stafford can go. I just think they can play a little bit more defense. Now, the interesting thing to watch, in my opinion, the most interesting thing about the Rams is that they lost a number of coaches and they leached some players. I'd love to see what they do with this next defensive coordinator and this next set of talent, because they lost a lot of guys, and a lot of guys were so good because of Brandon Staley. Well, they're gone and he's gone. So what kind of defense is this going to be? But they do still have some centerpieces. They did keep Floyd. So I think they can play just a little bit more defense. And so I'll give them the edge over the Seahawks, but it's a coin flip in my opinion. Then I do have the Super Bowl favorite Washington football team winning their division, followed by the wild card. I have the New Orleans Saints, the Seattle Seahawks, and then I'm going to go with the Vikings, but not because I feel great about it, but because I don't know about the Cowboys. I think, honestly, that the NFC West is going to just beat up on each other, and someone is going to have a worse record just because they beat up on each other, not because they're a worse team. It's just that's the way it worked out. Somebody has to lose out. They already have 2 guys in the playoffs, so someone has to miss out. So I'm going to go with the Vikings because why not? I guess it'll make my brother-in-law happy.
Well, they do get, like Alex was saying about the AFC South, like they get 4 games against the Bears and the Lions. So theoretically, that's at least 3 wins, but it is what it is. All right, Alex, wrap us up with the NFC. What do you got?
I got the Packers winning the NFC North. No surprises there. I got the... This is tough. I go back and forth on this. I have the Dallas Cowboys winning the NFC East. And that
Holy
pains
cow.
me to say.
Blink if you're being held hostage.
I think Washington is the more complete team in that division to an extent, but I do like what Dak gives you as a high-end quarterback in that offense. They just have so many weapons that can kill you. So, unfortunately, I do think they win the East. It may be a 7-9 NFC East kind of win because that's how the division's been trending, but I do have them winning, and I'm sure they won't in 4 months. But then I got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like you guys have said, winning the NFC South. I think the Saints could be a contender here if Jameis Winston gives them high enough level play, but sort of need to see more than one preseason game to kind of make that evaluation. And then you have the Panthers and the Falcons, who I just think are, unfortunately, completely out of it for now. I don't think there's much those teams can do as they're sort of in quasi-rebuilds. So the NFC West is also a tough division to pick. I ended up going with San Francisco 49ers to win the division. I know a lot of people have boiled it down to the Seahawks and Rams. Wouldn't be surprised if any of those 4 teams won. I think it's really possible for any of them. But I do think at some point the Niners will turn to Trey Lance, and I think their defense will be a little bit better than last year with a lot of the guys they're getting back, like Nick Bosa. So to me, that's a real dogfight division. I could see any of those 4 teams winning it, but for now, I will take the Niners to win it. And for my 3 wildcard teams, it's really hard to pick 3. So I'll go with the Saints. I'll go with the Saints, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals. I will go with those 3 as my wild card. So I have left the Rams out of the playoffs, which I'm sure will come back to bite me in the ass. But for now, those are my 3 teams. I'm not picking multiple playoff teams out of the NFC East or North, as you might be able to tell.
Alex, are you okay, man? Like, you picked the Cowboys and Cliff Kingsbury's team to make the playoffs?
Well, it's not Cliff Kingsbury's team; it's Kyler Murray's team, and that's how I view my sipping for it. So
there we go. The Saints are really interesting to me, and I think them losing games at the Superdome is really unfortunate. And shout out to anyone that's down there. I know our guy Craig has some family that lives in Louisiana, so I hope everyone is okay there. But did you guys hear why they picked Jacksonville as opposed to other places?
Yes, Jeff Duncan's article was great.
I didn't read it, so enlighten me.
So they were deciding between like Louisiana, or they were deciding between playing in Dallas or playing in like Alabama or playing in Florida, and they ended up choosing Jacksonville for the sole purpose that it was the most difficult place for Packers fans to get to. Like, they had someone in their front office or somebody like that, like, chart out like flights and everything. And apparently like Jacksonville was the most expensive and longest flights. Man. And so they figured that would kind of deter some Packers fans from flying, because anybody can fly to Dallas like super quick. You likely have a direct flight. It's probably super cheap. But flying to Jacksonville is longer and much more expensive. So that's the reason why they're playing in Jacksonville and not somewhere else.
Also, who wants to go to Jacksonville?
Who wanted to live in Florida?
Well, like, look, if you live in Florida,
Miami's
Miami,
different.
Miami and Fort Lauderdale, I don't want to live in Jacksonville. It's just like the armpit of America. Like, I mean,
I thought that was Cincinnati a couple months ago, Alex.
It's Cincinnati. It's Jacksonville.
The other armpit.
Yeah, you get 2 armpits.
Yeah, there's way more than 2 armpits. I mean, if we're being honest about this country. But yeah, no, I guess that makes sense. You know, I'd rather play there than Dallas anyway, because then you have to like share the stadium with the Cowboys, which seems gross. So you know, I guess Jacksonville is okay for what it is. I hope they get back to the Superdome as soon as they can, though, because that's always a fun place to play. And obviously, you know, just watch on TV and hear all the noise. And that was one of the disappointing things, in addition to Michael Badgley missing kicks in the Superdome last year. Was just, you know, that game did not have the same energy that it usually has for a prime time, you know, football game there. So I hope they get back there as soon as they can.
Yeah, and I just think they're so interesting. They're going to be so well coached again. That defense is still super nasty, even though they lost a bunch of players. But we'll have to see. All right, let's pick our conference game participants and Super Bowl winners. Alex started us off last time. So Tyler, give us your AFC Championship game participants, NFC Championship game participants, and who you have in the Super Bowl and who you have winning.
No surprise, I do have the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. I will continue to put them there until Mahomes blows out his knee, and so I have them playing. Okay, I have them playing the Browns now. Okay. Technically, based on seeding, this could be different. And if I had seeded them, it's potential that the matchup wouldn't happen because they'd lose to the Bills or whatever. But based on, I really think the Browns could take that next step. It's weird to be talking about them in this way, but I do think I would like to at least see it. Maybe I'm just manifesting it because I would like to see Cleveland go somewhere in the NFL and give some hope to Chargers fans that maybe one day we'll get there too. So I had the Chiefs and the Browns. Unfortunately, the Browns get smushed and the Chiefs end up winning because, of course, I'm going to pick them until I can't, I will pick them. So the Chiefs are moving on to the Super Bowl for the billionth year in a row. The NFC Championship game is honestly no surprise. It's coming down to the Packers and the Bucks for me. I would love to see something else out there, but at this point, I think those 2 teams are just going to collide in the playoffs in the NFC Championship game, and it's going to be, you know, the winner gets onto the Super Bowl, obviously. So of those 2, I would love to say that Aaron Rodgers is going to make it to the Super Bowl. But again, there's just something about that team where there's just kind of something missing, even though he's great and Jones is great and Adams is great and their line is very good. I don't know. I don't really buy them to beat the Bucks. I obviously buy them as a team. They're getting to the NFC Championship game, but I don't buy them to win. So unfortunately, I am repeating Chiefs versus Bucks. And are we picking Super Bowls yet? The winners?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, man. So I hate Patrick Mahomes and I hate Tom Brady. So we're here right now. It's not great. I'm going to go ahead and unfortunately pick the Kansas City Chiefs, barring them losing both of their tackles and their linemen right before the Super Bowl. I do think that the Chiefs they had the most magical quarterback, and I do think they upgraded potentially their offensive line, unless that becomes awful, which again, it potentially could, new pieces. But I just think they unfortunately added 2 really good interior offensive linemen and a tackle for not all that much. And so I'm very irritated with the NFL for letting them do that. If they had not been able to add a Creed Humphrey, a Trey Smith, then maybe, but they added them and they've been really good because of course they've been really good.
Shocker.
Everyone knew that. Huge shocker. The 2 really good players are really good. So, of course, the Chiefs are going to move on. And I do think the Chiefs are going to get their revenge. So, yeah, I have the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
I do think that they absolutely upgraded the interior. I don't think that they upgraded over like a healthy Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz, but definitely upgraded over what they had in the Super Bowl for sure. All right, Alex, give us your predictions for conference championship weekend and Super Bowl.
Before I do that, I want to respond to something that Tyler said. Tyler said that the Browns have to give hope to the Chargers that someday.
What a weird sentence.
What have the Browns done over the last 30 years? They've been garbage. Cleveland is a garbage city.
But what honestly have the Chargers done in our lifetime? Like they've
the
gone
Chargers
to
have been better over the
game.
last 20 years than the Browns.
True,
The Browns
I guess.
go 0-16 every year before they got Baker Mayfield.
So even if that trash team can make it to the postseason and go to the AFC Championship game, by golly, this Chargers team can. If they can make it, anyone can make it.
But like I don't know, we've had more playoff appearances and runs than them. Anyway, going to the AFC, I think the conference championship game. I mean, the Chiefs are going to be there. I don't have much doubt about that. I think who the other team is can come down to really the AFC North and the AFC East. I'm going to go with the Chiefs and the Bills again. I will go with that just because I think the Bills are a little bit better coached and just kind of have a better, path offensively through Josh Allen than, playing through Baker Mayfield. Although the Browns are getting some of their offensive pieces back. And in that championship game, unsurprisingly, I'm also going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl again. I don't think there's too much surprise. Obviously, I think the Bills are a team that can beat the Chiefs. They're capable of doing it. They were capable of doing it last year. They've upgraded their defense a little bit. But to me, just Patrick Mahomes behind a healthy offensive line this year, that's just something that I don't think the Bills can quite contend with, at least at this point. And in the NFC,
that little chuckle gets me every time.
How far are the Cowboys going here, Alex?
Cowboys aren't going too far. Okay. I'm gonna go with the Packers and the Seahawks. In the NFC Championship game, doing what they did a couple of years ago. It was 2015 when that happened. So they rematched in the NFC Championship game. And I have to give it to Rodgers. Come on. He has to win an NFC Championship game eventually here. I can't curse him for this much longer. I feel like, he's kind of on a revenge tour and the coaching staff will be a little bit better. Definitely some questions on the offensive line with Corey Linsley leaving and Brian Bulaga already gone, right? But I think they've always been good at rebuilding that offensive line. So I will go with the Chiefs-Packers Super Bowl. This is also, like Steven and Tyler do often, me manifesting it into existence because I would like to see Patrick Mahomes versus Aaron Rodgers in Super Bowl before I die. That would be really fun. But I'm going to go, like Tyler said, with the Chiefs in the end.
Man, everybody's picking the Chiefs, and I am not going to do that. I think the Chiefs will be in the AFC Championship game, but as I said earlier, I think the Bills go to Kansas City in week 8 or 9 or whenever it is and get a win and get the 1 seed. And I just think playing at home in Buffalo is really going to be the difference for them. And I do think that they made enough upgrades on defense to kind of manage Patrick Mahomes. And like we all talked about, we're all expecting a big season from Josh Allen, and they have a ton of weapons on the outside. I love the Emmanuel Sanders pick. Now they really have 4 legitimate receivers that he can throw to. So I have the Bills beating the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And then in the NFC Championship game, like Alex, I really would love to see, Aaron Rodgers playing a Super Bowl again, especially if it's against Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. I just they're kind of they really remind me of the Phoenix Suns of my childhood, where they're just so much fun to watch and they just really cannot play anybody that really kind of bullies them. So I have the NFC Championship game being the Buccaneers and the Seattle Seahawks. I think the Seahawks would be able to go to Green Bay and do what the Bucs did and kind of bully them off the field to a certain extent. And then I do have the Buccaneers winning. So similar to the Chiefs that Tyler was saying, I'm not going to predict Tom Brady not being in the Super Bowl until I see it happening more often. So I have the Bills and the Buccaneers, but I do have the Bills winning. So I think it's going to be a special season for the Buffalo Bills, despite all the COVID struggles from Cole Beasley that they have had and others. I do think that they just have a great culture. I think they upgraded their pass rush. I think AJ Epinesa and Gregory Rousseau and Boogie Basham will really help that team kind of take that next step. And then I love that offense. So I have the Bills beating the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl.
The Bills got Rousseau and Basham?
They sure did. They sure did.
I'm not gonna change my pick yet, but
yeah, it's crazy because their GM like came out and said like when they got to the third round, they were not planning on taking another pass rusher, but Boogie Basham was just sitting right there. And so we've talked about like the flexibility in like the secondary that you have with like Derwin and Chris Harris and stuff like that. Talk about the flexibility of a pass rush with Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, and Boogie Basham, all guys who can play on the edge, all guys who can rush on the interior. And you have kind of like what Alex's Eagles had in 2018, where you just have 4 dudes who can get after the quarterback. And I just think that really is going to be a huge help when you're going up against all these great quarterbacks.
A Josh Allen, Tom Brady Super Bowl on Twitter would make me delete the
app. No, that is definitely not what I want to see. Like, I do think from a Super Bowl standpoint, like Chiefs and Packers would absolutely be the most fun because you know that game is going to be like 49-42. But I can't buy the Packers, man. I can't. Like every time it gets to them against a physical team, they wilt. So I just can't buy the Packers this year.
I'm just trying to do what you did with the Trey Pipkins cut and manifesting it. Yeah, I mean, I know it's not going to happen, but I'm just going to do it anyway.
No, I appreciate that for sure. All right, let's wrap this up with our predictions for some regular season awards. Surprise to nobody, I'm picking Josh Allen to win the MVP. I think, getting the 1 seed is almost kind of a requirement at this point. And I think he's going to pair that with some elite numbers. For Defensive Player of the Year, I'm actually going to go with Chase Young. I think Chase Young is going to have a monster season, taking that second-year leap. I think he really is going to be put together a special season. Offensive Player of the Year, I have Devontae Adams, best receiver in the league, going to put up huge numbers again. Offensive Rookie of the Year, I'm picking someone that was already mentioned on the show, and that's Najee Harris. I don't really buy any of the quarterbacks putting up like truly special numbers this year. Although I think Mac Jones could certainly make it interesting because I think he's going to be on a winning team and put up okay numbers. But I'm going to pick Najee Harris because I think he's going to be, fed the rock 20, 25 times a game, have a huge season. And then somebody asked us about this live stream about like dark horse picks. And I'm going to double down on Joe Tryon for Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think, again, he's, we've seen that kind of shift towards being a pass rusher award. And so I think that Joe Tryon is kind of my favorite pick in terms of the rookies to put up some sneaky good numbers. And of course, if I were betting and mentioning a favorite bet again, it would be Joe Tryon. And then the least surprising award pick of anything is going to be Comeback Player of the Year, which is going to be Dak Prescott because he plays quarterback and he plays quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. So you might as well pencil that in now. I know everybody is going to want Derwin James or Christian McCaffrey or Nick Bosa, but it's going to be Dak Prescott because he plays quarterback and he plays quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's Dak Prescott is going to be the interesting one to watch. I mean, he's definitely the favorite. The only thing I'm concerned about with him is just what this arm stuff is all about. And I don't think that'll really cause him problems in the long term. But if he misses a few games here and there, that could take away from his candidacy. Don't think it'll happen as of now until we learn more. So for MVP, I'm going to do what I do last year and give it to Russell Wilson. He's getting the Shanahan offense. I'm going to speak it into existence until it keeps happening. So he has this thing where it's like week 10, he's like the MVP favorite, and then it just falls off with the Seahawks doing what they usually do. So that's unfortunate. But I feel like he has to win one. He's too good to not win one over the course of his career. So I'll give it. I'll give it to him this year. Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, I do have Micah Parsons winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. I just think he's going to have too many opportunities for numbers. Sorry, Steven. Offensive Rookie of the Year, I will go with Najee Harris. Actually, no, I'm not going to go with Najee Harris. I'm going to go with Mac Jones. Just because of what the Patriots have done. I've gone back and forth between those two. I still think Najee Harris is the best bet just because his odds are longer and Mac Jones' odds have become supercharged since Cam Newton was released. But I do think that Mac Jones actually wins the award with the system that they had there in New England and the weapons that they've gotten for him. Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, Nelson Aguilar. And so, I think that they have enough pieces there to the point where it's better than it was last year. And even in Tom Brady's final year when he was throwing to Mohamed Sanu at the end of playoff games. So I will take, Najee Harris and Michael Parsons for the Rookie of the Year awards. Player and offensive and defensive player of the year. Tough to say. I mean, because I think Russell Wilson's winning MVP, that takes him out of offensive player of the year. So, I think I could go with Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes, somebody like that for offensive player of the year. Just that's kind of the runner-up to MVP at this point. Obviously, they could also give it to whoever the most impressive running back or wide receiver is as well. And for defensive player of the year, I think Chase Young's a good bet. So I'll go with that one. Like Steven did, I think that makes a lot of sense. And comeback player of the year has to go to Dak Prescott, unfortunately, at least until we know more about his arm injury. And then, of course, that can change. And we could start talking about Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey or Joe Burrow, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. No, good picks. For the sake of trying to avoid some of like the obvious, like, oh, quarterback's going to win offense or like pass rusher's going to win defensive rookie, I'll try to pick some different guys. So for offensive rookie of the year, I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts, which I don't really believe in. But you know what? If anyone is going to do it and break the mold for as not a quarterback or not a running back, some freaking monster like Kyle Pitts is the guy to do it. And he's going to be a high volume, high target guy in that offense. That team is going to win all of 3 games, but he's going to have he's going to have a monster season. He's going to have a monster season for the Falcons and a monster season for my fantasy football team. So thank you for that. For defensive rookie of the year, for picking somebody a little bit different, I'm sure Alex is going to love this. I'm going to go with Patrick Surtain. I do think the situation that he's in is really, really good. He's going to look very good. It sounds like he already looks very good. And coming out of college, he was a very good player. So, again, it'll probably go to a pass rusher or a linebacker, but in trying to manifest something else, I do think Patrick Surtain could be a very, very interesting pick there. For offensive player of the year, I did have Devontae Adams. I just think back when we did that fantasy sort of draft, Devontae Adams was head and shoulders above every other receiver in almost every category. Yeah. And when combining all those categories, he was just so much further along than everybody else. And Rodgers is still there. Therefore, I'm going to go with Adams. For defensive player of the year, I'm surprised not a single Charger was picked. I'm going with Joey Bosa. I think it is time. I think they have a good plan for him. I do believe he's going to stay healthy. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. But I do think when he's healthy, if healthy, he is one of the best defensive players in football. And as long as they don't give it to Aaron Donald for the 45th time in a row, I do think Joey Bosa, again, Donald obviously deserves it, but Bosa is always the guy who is right behind Aaron Donald in terms of statistics, pass rush win rate, run stops, and whatnot. So I'm going to give it to Bosa. That's obviously if he stays healthy. I could totally see Derwin James winning it as well. He's going to be a very popular player. He is a very popular player with a very popular coach on a very popular team in terms of, I guess, national media coverage, I would sort of say, like an LA team. So I think he has a shot. For comeback player of the year, I really wanted to vote for Tim Tebow, but he's not on the roster anymore. So I'm going to go with Dak Prescott as well. Nothing I can do there. My hands are tied. So I had to go with Dak Prescott.
Oh, man.
And then MVP, I'm going to go with Josh Allen as well. I do think even if Mahomes has a pretty similar season, I just think they kind of want to give it to somebody else. So let's go with Josh Allen. I don't know if we're doing coach of the year, but for
we did it, but you can, yeah.
Yeah, for coach of the year, again, if I think this team is going to be good and someone I bet money on to win the Super Bowl, I'll go with Ron Rivera. Why not? Because I think they can potentially take the next step, and he's a good story because he's a cancer survivor. So as long as that team doesn't crumple within because they're all not vaccinated, I do think Ron Rivera has a shot at coach of the year.
I'm going to go. I was just going to say, I'm going to do my Homer thing so you guys can get off my ass about this roster cut stuff. Brandon Staley, coach of the year, first time winner. So that's going to be
congratulations. 64 minutes and no one's listening anymore.
Nope. Yeah, so we go with Brandon Staley for coach of the year.
But I do think that Staley is honestly a good pick because we've seen kind of this trend recently where it's like either somebody like obviously Ron Rivera won last year. Wait, did he win last year or was it Stefanski?
No, Stefanski.
He won twice though.
Yeah. So we've seen kind of like it be coaches who are like really overcoming a lot. Like Ron Rivera was, I know he was in a discussion for a long time because of like making the playoffs with that atrocious quarterback situation. But we've also seen it be like recently, first time head coaches like Matt Nagy won it, and then Stefanski won it. And so it's, it is very possible for Brandon Staley to do that. I'm going to go with Sean Payton for coach of the year. I think it's been quite a while. And I think if he really does take on Jameis as a reclamation project and it works out, like, I think that's going to carry a lot of weight. And then, of course, you had the Rivera cancer story last year. This year, you'll have the hurricane in New Orleans again. So
good point.
I do think that Payton could get some sympathy votes there. What I was going to say, though, is that just really quickly, like we were laughing about the Tim Tebow thing, but if he made the roster and like made any kind of contribution, that he probably would win it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeremy Schaub would have been on ESPN like, here's the thing you don't get about Tim Tebow. All that ESPN simping for Tim Tebow. I'm so happy you got cut. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, I was talking about Defensive Player of the Year, and I said Chase Young, but then Tyler reminded me that Aaron Donald existed, and I'm reverting that award back to
So easy to forget about him,
It's so easy.
Man, it's just like one of the most dominant stretches in history. Like it's just unreal, like what he does. And I whenever I think of Aaron Donald and like how dominant he is, I think of that picture that Ted Wynn posted of the Miami Dolphins literally blocking him with 3 players and then having a tight end block like each of their edge rushers instead. Like it cracks me up like how dominant he is, and still to this day just like is wrecking fools. And shout out to that one ESPN surveyee who said that he was like the 5th defensive tackle, and just how stupid that was. But, all right, guys, this has been a great show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Our listeners, I think it's going to be a super fun NFL season. So many storylines that we talked about and that we also kind of discussed with Taylor Bisciotti. So there's a lot to look forward to. And of course, like we have no idea how the return of fans in stands is going to impact things this year. Which I think is a true wild card this year. But Tyler, we'll start with you. Any final thoughts before we wrap up today's show?
I am so happy the regular season is over, almost here. And even though we've picked mostly non-Chargers, there's a really good case for a lot of Chargers and this team and this coach to win these awards, to look really good, to make the postseason. So I'm very excited about this team. Everyone, again, still is very healthy. I'm so excited about that, and I cannot wait to watch them week 1 and then be there with all 4 of us and the 80,000 Dallas Cowboy fans in week 2.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one for you guys. So yeah, no, I definitely am excited to watch the Chargers. And Steven mentions the hurricane story and how that could boost Sean Payton, but I think if you look at overcoming cutting Tyron Johnson, that could really boost Brandon Staley's candidacy.
You had to go there, man. Well done. I appreciate it. I respect the commitment to the bit there. But in all seriousness, man, I know there's been a lot of negativity around Twitter recently because we disagree with roster decisions and things like that. And I think at the end of the day, like Alex was saying on Twitter today, is like we can support the team and still disagree with what they're doing, but that doesn't mean like we are jumping ship on this team. Like this team still has such a bright future. As long as I think their core players stay healthy, then they're going to be great. And like Tyler was saying, if this defense plays out as we think, and Joey Bosa, Derwin James stay healthy, and we might see kind of a runaway with the defensive wars this year. I think that could absolutely be possible. So want to thank Taylor Bisciotti again for joining us, and want to thank Tyler and Alex for doing something fun today. I know we've talked a lot about the Chargers, and rightfully so. This is a Chargers podcast, but we wanted to mix it up, have some fun with the NFL predictions. And I think it's just, I love NFL football, man. And so talking about it in this fashion is a lot of fun. Shout out to all of you guys who are tuning in. We do really appreciate all the positive feedback. Make sure to leave us a rating or a review on your audio platforms. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, comment. We always like interacting with you guys. This has been the Guilty as Charged podcast, and we'll see you next time.